Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is all about the Chain Blades Wound build, and I'm excited to show you what this build can do. We've got 3 parts to this video, so stick around. In part 1, you'll see some gameplay footage. This build is no joke, it can dish out some serious damage in solo or party play. Part 2 is where I'll dive into the details of the build. I'm not holding anything back, so get ready to take notes. And then there's part 3, the most important part of this video. If you want to master this build, don't skip this section. I'm going to show you how to use it to its fullest potential. So, let's get started with part 1. You'll see how effective this build can be. I'm doing kills in under 50 seconds when playing solo, and between 25 and 40 seconds in party play. Even in random party can't take more than 40 seconds. Most important thing is to wound part quick and use Revenant Omni Cells to activate Ether Rush mod and Relentless buff. After that, everything is easy. Your build will have max attack speed without any restrictions, but be sure to watch part 3 to get an insight into how to play the build properly, because there is a possibility that can slow down the build and attack speed. When you are in Ether Rush mode and use Revenant Omni Cells, all you have to do is do damage. Because this build is with Relentless, you can do damage on any part of behemoths, while unlike Savagery, you would have to hit the part that is wounded in order to have a benefit. This is not an extra speed run build because this is not a full damage build, but because of the wound it can easily help even if you do a speed run. The catch is that with this build, if you have enough bounty tokens, you can finish twice as many bounties than with full damage build. With this build, you can take almost any offer for bounties, and most of them come with wound damage, so it will be easy for you to take wound, stagger, or part damage bounties that appear in almost 90% of cases. This means that with 1 or maximum 2 behemoths you have completed 4 bounties. Let's move on to part 2. Build. I'm using this build for solo as well as for party. Here you can see the complete build with cells in each slot. The end build is +6 Adrenaline, +6 Catalyst, +6 Predator, +6 Pulse, +6 Relentless and +3 Acidic and Recycle. Of course, you can switch Acidic with something else. You can also change some more cells, but for a solo run, this build will help you to do the wound quickly. We have reached the last and important part, part 3 and the build guide. I know that now some will criticize that Relentless and Catalyst are not good together because of the attack speed cap and that it is better to take Savagery instead of Relentless, but none of them will tell you that they all play with experienced players and they all play together in a group. This means that they can play with Relentless, for example, without a Catalyst, instead some damage or speed attack cell, or a completely different full damage build, like in Trials for example. The advantage is that they can play like that because they are with experienced players and everyone in the group can get buffs from each other, such as attack speed from Reuse's cell for all players, Pike Special Savage Wellspring with 30% critical strike chance and with the Munitions Amplifier mod additional 25% on it, Ether Rush mod in almost 2 to 3 seconds from players with pikes. But what if you are solo, or playing with players who are not so experienced? All those builds will mean nothing to you, and you will only lose a lot of time in gameplay because you won't be able to wound quickly and to get Ether Rush mod, which otherwise gives you 15% of attack speed, attack damage, moving speed and stamina regeneration. But let's move on to this build and the things you need to know in order to get the most out of the build. First, if you play solo, it means that you have to make a wound yourself in order to get the Ether Rush buff, but if you play in a group, it doesn't matter if it's a party or random, you get the Ether Rush buff even if someone else does a wound. You just have to do damage to that wound part and you automatically get the Ether Rush buff. Here you can see an example of that. I'll also play it in slow motion for you to understand the point. Watch now in normal speed these 3 short clips where I do no damage at all and wait for my friend to do a wound so I can only do 1 damage to that wound part to get a buff. Second, attack speed and cap. Normally, without Ether Rush buff, with potions and catalyst, you will have an excellent attack speed, while with Ether Rush buff, it will exceed a few % of the maximum attack speed, but the attack speed will be higher than without Ether Rush. That means that with this build you will be with a little less damage, but therefore almost constantly with a high and almost maximum attack speed. Now we come to the last part, the part in which I will explain when this build will be slower, in which situation. So far we have had less damage, but that's why it is almost always maximum attack speed, which in the end means more damage. However, if, for example, we change this build and instead of recycle we put reuses for higher attack speed, or the same build but someone in the group plays with reuses, after you get buff from reuses, this build attack speed will be slower because the attack speed percentage is much higher, 70% plus, of the maximum allowed, means 50% attack speed cap. This slow motion shows you on the left side this build and the time it takes to make 3 left and 1 right attack, and on the right the build with reuses. You will see that for only one this combo attack of 3 seconds, the attack speed is reduced by 0.24 plus fractions of a second. When you multiply that by how many hits you make during one fight, even during 60 minutes, for example, we arrive at a figure of maybe 5 to 10 minutes slower with the reuses buff. But don't worry, if you play in a group, this won't feel much because the behemoths will be killed faster. The only problem will be if you play solo or maybe in random if you run into a group with beginners. That's it for today's video. Thanks for staying until the very end and see you in the next video.